Saudi Arabia is facing renewed global criticism after sentencing one of its most prominent women's rights activists to nearly 6 years in prison. A Saudi court convicted Loujain Al-Hathloul yesterday, accusing her of agitating for change and pursuing a foreign agenda. She was arrested in 2018 after pushing for women's rights to drive and travel freely without permission or guardianship from men. Holly Williams takes a closer look at the case.
Loujain Al-Hathloul took on the Saudi Arabian government by taking the wheel, a courageous form of protest when women were still banned from driving by the ultra-conservative Islamic kingdom. She was arrested in 2018, ironically just weeks before Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman finally gave women permission to drive, the last country in the world to do so.
At the beginning, she was so scared.
Alia Al-Hathloul told us her sister's real crime was questioning the all-powerful Saudi regime and says she was tortured, including with electrocution.
She thought that she was going to die, and they were threatening her to kill her and to rape her.
A Saudi court said there was no evidence of torture, but Al-Hathloul's family says it was supervised by this man, Saud Al-Qahtani, a former close associate of the Crown Prince, who also allegedly directed the 2018 murder of Jamal Khashoggi, a Saudi journalist who angered the authorities. We've been reporting on Saudi women fighting for their rights since 2014, as well as the hardliners who tried to stop women driving.
It is going to affect the harmony, tranquility of the Saudi nation.
With time served and a partially suspended sentence, Loujain Al-Hathloul could be released in 3 months, but her brother said she'll appeal the conviction.
The moment she saw the verdict, she started crying because of the fact that she has been labeled as a terrorist, basically.
Oh, this is a tough one. Holly Williams is here with me now to talk about this. Holly, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. So, Holly, you know, as you mentioned in the piece, Loujain was arrested just weeks before the kingdom lifted the decades-old ban on women driving. That was the main issue she seemed to be pushing for. So why was she charged and sentenced in the first place, or do you think something else is going on here?
Yeah, it seems to be a real contradiction, doesn't it? And when I speak to people outside of Saudi Arabia, they're really confused by that. They say, hang on, the kingdom was about to give women the right to drive, which was a vindication of everything she'd been fighting for. Why on earth would they arrest her? I think what the Saudi regime, the message that it's sending by arresting her is saying, we may decide to give you more freedoms as Saudi citizens or as women, but you don't get to push for them. You don't get to call us out. You don't get you're not allowed to agitate for change. And that really tallies with everything we've seen in Saudi Arabia over the last few years. Before the Crown Prince came to power, we would go to Saudi Arabia. Women had far fewer social freedoms, but a lot of them were very willing to speak to us on camera criticizing the government. Now it's the reverse.
Wow.
The Crown Prince has given Saudi women more freedoms in their daily life, but people are terrified of speaking out.
It's interesting how that flipped. We know the family says that they're going to appeal the ruling. In your mind, what happens next in this case?
Well, they say that she's going to appeal. Given everything that we know about the Saudi Arabian justice system, I would say that her chances of success are fairly slim. I mean, just look at the charges that she was convicted on. First of all, she was convicted under anti-terrorism laws. But look at the specific charges, things like agitation for change, using the internet to undermine public order. That certainly isn't terrorism as we understand it. And I think that the way that she's been dealt with by the Saudi courts is not justice as we typically experience it in the US and other Western countries.
Yeah, I think that's where people would have a hard time kind of understanding this in a different country as to how this could happen. You know, we've had so many different groups here in this country protesting over the summer for change. Where do you think activists, you know, including Loujain Al-Hathloul and other women's rights activists, where do they go from here? When you say that, you know, as you've been reporting, there really has been this changing tide of them coming forward and talking and now being silenced. Where does the movement go?
Well, obviously, it's very dangerous to do what Loujain Al-Hathloul did and speak out and call out the Saudi regime. On the other hand, she and other women who are older than her, have been pushing for more freedom, including the right to drive, since the 1990s. I've spoken to some of those women who've been campaigning for over 2 decades now. And it's been effective, because what they've done in questioning, whether they should be allowed to drive, but also calling out the regime over the male guardianship system, which means that for years, all Saudi women had to have a male relative's permission just to do basic things like study, work, travel overseas, get medical procedures. By speaking out about all of those problems, they've really shamed the Saudi Arabian government publicly, internationally. And I think that that's contributed to the fact that a lot of those rules have now changed.
How is the U.S. and international community, how are they responding to this particular case that you've seen?
Condemnation, broadly speaking, internationally. Interestingly, in the US, the response from the Trump administration, from the current government, has been fairly muted. A spokesman for the State Department said that they were concerned about the sentencing of Loujain Al-Hathloul. A much stronger response from the incoming administration. The incoming National Security Advisor to President-elect Biden said that this sentencing was, quote, unjust and troubling. And I think it's entirely possible that the fact that Loujain Al-Hathloul has been given a partially suspended sentence, which means that she may be released within 3 months, is an attempt by the Saudi Arabian government to try and placate the incoming Biden administration. Now, whether they're successful in doing that is an entirely different matter.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see once that the transition happens. Holly Williams, thank you so much for your incredible reporting. We appreciate it.